How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Detroit Lions franchise here on Madden 22. My name is Football Fan Forever, and it's time for our Season 3 preseason highlight video. If you haven't watched the condensed version of our offseason, I highly recommend that video because it details the changes or lack thereof that went into this team coming off of its Super Bowl victory last season. We're returning a lot of that same roster heading into Season 3, but there are a few position battles that I wanted to make sure to highlight during the preseason. The starting right outside linebacker position is up for grabs, the rush right end position is also open, and we also had a lot of wide receivers to audition for playing time behind Christian Kirk, Quintez Cephas, and Keegan Darby. Finally, the sub-linebacker position opposite D'Angelo Carmichael was also up for grabs between incumbent Alex Anzalone, newly signed Quan Alexander, and rookie first-round pick George Towns. I also purposely didn't play a couple of players, mostly DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams, in order to keep them fresh for the regular season. The first quarter of this first game against the Bills will have the starters on the field, however, and the offense is led by your reigning Super Bowl MVP Bob Hairston. He's under center on 1st and 10 near midfield, well protected, and fires over the middle to a wide open Keegan Darby. Nice to see those two pick up where they left off from the Super Bowl. As we head to defense here, Josh Allen in the shotgun. He is back to pass, and he takes a deep shot, some blown coverage here. Walker had a really nice season for us last year, but he doesn't get deep enough to prevent the 31-yard touchdown pass. Buffalo goes up early, 7-0, and we're back to the offense. We threw the ball a lot in the preseason, and not all of them were good decisions, but I wanted to see what our wide receivers could do, and that became especially important as we continue to take a look at the wide receiver room behind our starting three. But there's Keegan Darby making a nice catch in traffic that time. A couple plays later, Bob Hairston has rookie fourth-rounder Deshaun Peoples down to the 1 as we get 31 yards on that catch and run. And we actually do end up challenging this and taking another look at it in the instant replay here as the knee goes down just before the ball breaks the plane. But we do end up punching that one in, a short 1-yard touchdown run to tie the game. As here's a good series by our starting defense. First it is Dalton Logan off the edge, unblocked, and he makes that play in the backfield for a loss of 3. Next play it's 2nd and 13. And it's Levi Onwuzurike getting excellent penetration, followed by George Towns on the tackle. And on 3rd down, Allen is going to survey the field from the shotgun. He's well protected, fires for Diggs, and that is knocked away by Sean Francois. So a strong series by our starting defense to force a 3 and out. I think Diggs has that if Francois doesn't get a hand on it as he's trying to haul it in. As we head back to our offense with just over a minute to go in the first quarter, and there's a Christian Kirk connection for 14 yards. As we're trying to get as many plays with our starting offense on the field as possible, hurrying back to the line, Hairston under pressure fires a strike to Christian Kirk, who makes back-to-back catches, and that will do it for the highlights for our starters, as it's mostly backups for the rest of the way. One of the position battles on the team was for backup cornerback behind our starting trio, as David Mason made quite the impression in the preseason here. That's not the only time you'll hear me call his name. But who really shined in this game was backup quarterback Jacob Graves, as he finds the end zone for the first time here in the second quarter to give Buffalo a 14-13 lead. David Blau is in at quarterback for us here, the presumptive backup quarterback on the team. And he finds undrafted running back Ty Evans, who turns on the Jets after a couple of nice blocks and goes 65 yards to the house. It was a nice catch and run by the rookie, but it was Amon-Ra St. Brown's blocking on this play that really made it happen. For someone who struggled as a true wide receiver, it was a really good look for him to get involved in the run game. But speaking of struggling in the passing game, well, we didn't see a lot of plays made against Jacob Graves, so Georgetown's big hit on the tight end there is just about the only highlight I can show for a while, as Graves was back inside the 10-yard line here, 2nd and 6. He finds the end zone a second time in the second quarter, but he wasn't done there. 12 seconds on the clock, ball at the 10. 4 wide for Graves against a 4-man rush. He is protected and finds the end zone for the 3rd time in just 1 quarter of play. He was the best player on the field for a lot of today's game, but we just reached halftime. There's a lot of football left. Buffalo on top 28-20, and Graves patiently waits for the route to develop and finds his tight end down the field for a gain of 36. At this point, Graves has thrown more touchdowns than he's had incompletions. He's 19 of 21. As our run defense wasn't terrible, but we do get some bad news on this play. Backup middle linebacker Sean Dean Hamilton dislocated his knee, and that injury is thought to keep him out several weeks. So we will have a full update after the game, but right now it's Jacob Graves going for it on 3rd and goal here. 3 touchdowns already. There is number 4. And I was starting to think that the only thing that might slow him down was the end of the game. But there's still plenty of football left, and our backups started putting together some drives. Here's a nice catch and run. Quan Sandridge picking up 21 yards after the catch. And he wasn't the only young wide receiver to make an impression. Here's a 3rd and 8. David Blau in the shotgun. Ball on the 39-yard line. Pretty good coverage downfield, but it's Deshaun Peoples getting open to the 31. As he gets some playing time both with the starters and the backups. As we eventually drive down to the 1-yard line, 3rd and goal, toss right, lead block by Halapulivati Vaitai, and Kyle McPhee is into the end zone. So a bit of a bounce-back drive for our offense, but the defense needed to start making some plays. Despite being up 8, Buffalo kept throwing the ball, but this time it is Philip Harden taking advantage of good coverage downfield to bring down Graves for the sack. And slowly but surely, momentum started to shift. Despite objections from physics, Blau somehow gets this downfield where Deshaun Peoples climbs the ladder and comes down with it. One of the best catches of the preseason. A 23-yard gain to the rookie, and this is a guy that doesn't really make his bread and butter with catches like these. He's really more of a speed wide receiver, but it's nice to see him go up and come down with a tough catch like that. And that fired up our offense. Very next play, it's Kyle McPhee getting some excellent blocking, and he is untouched 27 yards into the end zone for the 2nd time here today. And there's just some excellent blocking on this play. Blake Culp holds his block, Kyrie Hughes gets into the 2nd level, and Deshaun Peoples takes out his man. As suddenly we're only 2 points away from a tie game. And after another defensive stop, we get the ball back. 1st and 10, Blau rolling to his right, firing on the run downfield. It is Dexter Allen hauling that one in at the 45. As Allen really stood out amongst the backups on the field here, making an incredible catch there, and well, he's not done just yet. That's also a heck of a throw by David Blau. And he's got one more big throw left in him here. 2 seconds left in the 3rd quarter. He is back to pass against the blitz, gets it away, and drops it in the bucket for Dexter Allen. Those two have a real connection on the field. We saw it in week 18 of last season, and now we're seeing it here in the preseason. As Allen reads the wide open seam, and Blau makes an incredible throw before taking a big hit to put us on top 40-35. And from there, our defense started tightening up. Graves wants his man downfield, but no one is open. It's Tevin Slayton, the second-year right outside linebacker, getting there with the sack. And our coverage started improving too. Here's a 1st and 10 pass attempt for Graves, and the pass is on target, but a combination of David Mason and James Winter team up to knock it out. So the ball goes back to our offense. And here is Miles Baker, the second-year wide receiver, with a gain of 22 on a jet sweep. Next play, it's 1st and 10. That is second-year quarterback Alton Haywood in the game. Play action. He's rolling to his right. No one is open, and he will take off. Haywood tucking and running, and he picks up 22 yards on the ground. He's not a true scrambling quarterback, but he's a little bit more mobile than David Blau, and he's able to get us inside the 10 here. 2nd and goal. It's Kyle McPhee into the end zone for the 3rd time here today. McPhee spent all last season on the practice squad, but 3 touchdowns in one game is bound to get you a longer look. So we scored 27 unanswered points. We now lead by 12, and Graves was trying to lead a comeback, but Philip Harden gets through for the 2nd time, taking advantage of excellent coverage downfield to force a 3rd and 19 at the 2-minute warning. Graves on 3rd down, fires to the left side, and there's a really nice catch as they will hurry back to the line. 4th and 5, 1:38 to go. Graves to the air, he's got his man over the middle, inside the 10, down to the 6. Buffalo hurrying back to the line. Graves looking for touchdown pass number 5. 1st and goal. Graves, touchdown! What a day he has had. 5 touchdown passes is almost unheard of in a full-length game, but Graves did it against us in 3 quarters. And with 25 seconds left to go, they still weren't out of it until Philip Harden gets home for the 3rd time here today. And I guess there's one more highlight, and you guys are going to like this one. 3 seconds left, we're up by 8. Normally you take a knee here, but it's the preseason and I'm playing Madden, so we're going to take one more shot on the run downfield. Emmett Wheeler with the one-handed touchdown catch as time expires. Take a look at this, as there are tons of fireworks here in the first preseason game. And probably the only bad news is that Sean Dean Hamilton is going to be out for 6 weeks with a dislocated knee. Now, he wasn't exactly set to have a big role on this team, with a lot of his snaps probably going to George Towns. But he's still a valuable backup in my opinion, so it stinks that we're going to be missing him for a chunk of time here. We do decide to place him on injured reserve in order to free up his roster spot come cut day. But all in all, it was a pretty fun first preseason game. Lots of points, little defense, and some standout performances. Deshaun Peoples and Emmett Wheeler both had some big plays. We saw Kyle McPhee find the end zone 3 times behind some pretty good blocking. And Philip Harden's hat trick of sacks made me look forward to our 2nd preseason game. Dexter Allen also stood head and shoulders above some of the other players on the field. It was fun to get him the ball. As we head on to our 2nd preseason game here against the New England Patriots. Starters get a full half of play this time, but I still tried rotating in some backups. And one of them gets his name called here. It's Ladarius Williams, the left outside linebacker in his 2nd season, stopping New England on 3rd down. And after Kyle McPhee played really well in the first game, I wanted to see what he could do with the starters. Here he benefits from a really nice hole and a great lead block by right guard Randall Barrow. But our first team offense also struggled at times here. Here's a 2nd and 8, Harrison under center, jet sweep to Keegan Darby, who takes a huge hit and ends up turning over the football. So not the greatest look for the 2nd-year wide receiver, but our defense made some plays here as well. Here's a 1st and 10. That is outside linebacker Derek Barnes dropping back in coverage, making a nice play. A little later on, it's 3rd and 3. We're into the second quarter here. Hand off to Damian Harris, and the play is made by Sean Francois. Our rushing defense wasn't great last season, so it's good to see Francois getting involved here and making physical plays near the line of scrimmage. But unfortunately, our offense continued to struggle. Here's a phenomenal catch by Keegan Darby that ultimately doesn't count because he was out of bounds. Good coverage there, decent ball placement, and a great catch, all for naught. As we head back to defense here, as Sean Francois is once again the first man there, shedding the tight end's block and making the play to force a stop. As New England ultimately adds a field goal and our offense takes over with just under 4.5 minutes to go in the first half, as Kyle McPhee is introduced to J.J. Watt. And that is the weakness in McPhee's game. He doesn't always protect the football and his carrying rating is low, so he tends to fumble more than the other running backs on the team. As New England is able to capitalize on that, and now they're driving up 13-3 with just under a minute to go, as there's Philip Harden with his 4th sack of the preseason, taking advantage of excellent coverage downfield. New England resets on 2nd and 18, very next play. Again, good coverage downfield, and it's Harden getting there a second time on back-to-back plays. So now 5 sacks in 2 games for the rookie outside linebacker as we head to the second half. Jake Fromm in the game for the New England Patriots, everyone going deep, and Fromm going down. Julian Okwara joining the sack parade with a loss of 12 there, as there aren't a whole lot of offensive highlights from this game. Here's another defensive one though. That is Linval Hartwell, the undrafted free agent corner, making a nice play to break up the screen for a loss of 5. But where we were really losing this game was against the run. Ramondre Stevenson just ran circles around our backups. Literally. Here's the Chauncey Barker experience. He gets off his block, can't quite find his man, does a full 360, and manages to make the tackle. So at least there's some perseverance there, but we really struggled to make plays against the run, and that left us susceptible to play action like this. Cover 6, Hartwell doesn't get deep enough, and Fromm with a picture-perfect touchdown pass to the back of the end zone puts New England up 20-3. I said there were very few offensive highlights, and this is one of the few highlights from the third quarter for us. Blau in the game, 3rd and 6, and a nice route run by Amon-Ra St. Brown. But just as quickly, we head back to defense. 5 wide for Fromm, ball on the 13, 2nd and 10. And Fromm is well protected, but there's good coverage downfield. Receivers trying to get open, but Fromm is not the most mobile, and like a heat-seeking missile, Philip Harden gets there for the 3rd sack of the afternoon. So New England adds a field goal, the score now 23-6, as Dexter Allen makes another nice catch down the field. One more play, actually the final offensive play for us in this game. Haywood takes his shot. Emmett Wheeler in the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit. Wheeler with just 2 catches thus far in the preseason, but both of them are touchdowns, as this just wasn't a fair matchup. He's got 7 inches on the cornerback who's supposed to be covering him here, and Wheeler is going to win that jump ball every day of the week. So while our second team defense is unable to get us the ball back, there's still some positives to take away from that game. We did see some really good coverage from our backup cornerbacks, and we were able to generate some pressure with some of our backup edge rushers. The injury bug did start biting us heading into the third game, however, as both Deshaun Peoples and Josh Newsom are nursing some minor injuries and were held out for precautionary purposes. We did see Philip Harden get to the quarterback 3 times, but I would say most of his sacks thus far have been coverage sacks. So impressive that he's putting up the numbers that he is, but he hasn't quite proven himself to be a consistent pass rusher off of the edge just yet. We also haven't seen much from Chauncey Barker, who's getting a lot of playing time, but hasn't provided any interior pass rush. He's going to continue to be a player that we focus on in training so that he can eventually grow into that role alongside Devin Woodson. Game 3 comes against Jacksonville, and this one gets out of hand fairly early on. That's because Madden has the AI coded to keep their starters in for a full 3 quarters like they did when it was a 4-game preseason. But with only 3 games in the preseason, it's even more important for us to evaluate our backups early on. Our starting lineup is mostly set, so I was actually interested in seeing our backups get some playing time against some first-team NFL players. As early on in this one, we are deep inside Jacksonville territory, and Randall Barrow is down with an injury. That is a concern surrounding him coming out of the draft, but fortunately it isn't serious, and he only misses a couple of series. Over to the defense now. D'Angelo Carmichael is in mid-season form. There's a tackle for loss on the running back Robinson there. Very next play, it's 2nd and 11, and Lawrence decides to spread it out 5 wide. And a quick pass over the middle is also broken up by D'Angelo Carmichael. So after single-handedly putting Jacksonville in a 3rd and 11 here, let's see how our defense does. We were one of the worst-ranked pass defenses last season. And with everybody covered downfield, it's Lucas Parra getting free for the sack and forcing the fumble. It is recovered by Jacksonville, but Carmichael makes a play at the line of scrimmage. So 3 stops from our superstar middle linebacker. Game is tied at 3. I think this is the last series our starting defense gets as Lawrence heads to the air and is brought down by Devin Woodson. Not too many Woodson highlights because I didn't give him a whole lot of playing time in the preseason either, but from then it was on to our backups. David Blau in the game along with a few of our backup linemen, and he's taking a deep shot to 6th round pick Kyrie Hughes. And that's not a throw I would normally make, especially to somebody like Hughes, but it's the preseason and you can try and test your players a little bit more. But the very next play, it's James Winter, the 2nd-year safety, getting the ball back for us as we turn over Jacksonville. Winter in really good position here. Not really sure what Lawrence saw, but I guess we have a punting highlight next. We struggled to move the ball against Jacksonville's defense, but Jack Fox is also in mid-season form, dropping this one at the 1-yard line. So I was looking forward to seeing what our defense did with the potential for a safety. 1st and 10, ball on the 1, handoff to Robinson. He breaks a tackle, gets into space, and there he goes! Nothing but green in front, and Dante Clark behind! The 2nd-year cornerback, bringing him down at the 28-yard line with a pure hustle play. So a highlight for both teams as Clark gets stuck in here near the line of scrimmage and then just does his best Buda Baker impression. You see, everyone else has given up on the play, but not Clark, who saves a 99-yard touchdown run with the best effort play you will see all preseason. So back to the offense we go, trying to figure out who's going to be our backup wide receivers. And these are the kinds of catches you want to see Amon-Ra St. Brown make. I get that he's not able to create a lot of separation, but his catching ratings are too good to be dropping those kinds of throws. So not a lot of offensive highlights at this point in the game, but the defense kept showing up. Lawrence under pressure checks this one down, and it's David Mason forcing the fumble on the hit. Anzalone recovers, and he's not touched. The play is still live, and Anzalone gets to score a defensive touchdown. So good awareness by Anzalone to keep playing when he didn't hear the whistle. And a nice hit here by Mason. I did not expect that hit to produce a fumble, but he certainly stood out amongst the backup cornerbacks. Back to defense we go. 5 minutes to go in the first half. And Lawrence is going to go down again. Kelce Peterson just winning the race. Lucas Parra also there. Unfortunately, we are not able to take advantage of that 3rd and 15 as Antoine Brooks is burned in man coverage. He's not a good cover safety, and that showed up again this preseason with him battling for a roster spot. Back to the offense we go, just over 3 minutes to go in the first half. David Blau in at quarterback, and here's a nice route run by Amon-Ra St. Brown. He did make a few catches in this game, and that in particular was a nice route that he ran. But he also flashed inconsistency that made me hesitant to keep him on the team. For someone who is more of a possession receiver based off of his ratings in this game, he really struggled whenever there was contact when he was trying to catch the ball. One more play in the first half here. It's undrafted free agent cornerback Linval Hartwell making a nice play on the ball to force an incompletion as we head to the 3rd quarter with Jacksonville leading 17-13. They'll set up the screen, and George Towns is all over that one, blowing up the play in the backfield with another of his huge hits. He's going to start forcing fumbles one of these days with the way he's consistently lowering the boom. As Jacksonville faces a 3rd and 3 all day for Lawrence, he fires downfield, and it's David Mason making the play to knock the ball away. And there's not a lot of offensive highlights for us. Jacksonville added a field goal from the last drive. They got the ball back, and now it's 1st and goal for them from the 4. But coverage is good, and Derek Barnes wins the race with Chauncey Barker to bring down Lawrence. Jacksonville does add a touchdown. Now they're up 27-13, and they've got the ball once again as Chauncey Barker gets his name called for a play at the line of scrimmage. That's one of the few highlights for him, but Devin Woodson started a little bit slow in the preseason as well, so it's nice to see him getting in on a play or two. As Alton Haywood is in the game, nice throw over the middle and an even better adjustment by Nicholas Harper. So we finally get an offensive highlight or two as we are concerned with getting as many reps as possible for this offense. Hurrying back to the line, Haywood to the left side that was intended for Harper, made its way to Miles Baker, who has the wherewithal to haul that one in. So a good adjustment by a couple of young wide receivers there. As Jacksonville has dropped 40 on us at this point, we are playing for pride and roster spots. As Quan Sandridge again stood out, at least amongst the backups. He runs a pretty good slant route, and we saw that a couple of times this preseason. As there's one more offensive highlight here, just under 5 minutes to go. Rasheem Bolton, the undrafted rookie tight end, making the catch there for the score. So we do end on a little bit of a high note, even though we end up losing that game pretty handily. It was a fun preseason. And preseason is honestly one of my favorite parts of this whole process. Getting to see players play that don't normally see the field very often. Seeing who breaks out and earns himself a roster spot or a starting role. And seeing who might benefit from a change of scenery. As I started trying to find trades for a couple of players, I wanted to send Amon-Ra St. Brown to a team where he would be their wide receiver 3 and actually see the field. So a 4th round pick is too much, but a 5th round pick will send Amon-Ra St. Brown to Arizona. While right end Jabari Zuniga has lost his role on the team, so rather than cut him, I try and trade him to Atlanta, which has some interest in him and needs a defensive end. The 5th round pick isn't enough, so a 6th round pick will make the deal go through. So here is our almost final roster. There's one more move to make at the end of this. Shouldn't be too many surprises on this opening day roster. I tend not to look at stats in the preseason as closely as they're not very indicative of the type of gameplay that we normally expect from our players, so it's really more about who passed the eye test over anything. Kyrie Hughes, for example, made the roster not because he made plays in the passing game, but because anytime I watched him run block, he was really solid, despite not having the best ratings in that category. Similarly, Kyle McPhee does not make the roster despite an impressive preseason. A lot of his runs were more due to having really open lanes and actually picking up tough yards, and his fumble troubles made me hesitant to keep him on the roster. We do start the year with 5 middle linebackers, but that is because Sean Dean Hamilton is on injured reserve. while rookie strong safety Tyreek Buchanan beats out Antoine Brooks for the backup strong safety position. But there is one more move to be made, as I was looking at the free agent list here to see if there were any exciting young players to snap up that other teams may have cut. But James Bradbury's a free agent? And that really surprised me. He's still one of the best cornerbacks in the league, even in his age 30 season. I definitely wasn't expecting a player of his caliber to hit free agency at this point in the process. But we have the cap room, and it's really a no-brainer to bring him on board. Our entire cornerback room is 24 years of age or younger, so he brings a much-needed veteran presence to our secondary. While his signing will also give us a lot more flexibility in terms of which cornerback we match up against which receiver on the field. He'll also be ready to go for week 1 after he rehabs from his broken finger. So to make room for him on the roster, we send Dante Clark to the practice squad. I will show our full roster and practice squad here in a minute so you guys can see the moves that were made. But first, a look at our schedule that has me really excited for this season. We get a Week 1 Super Bowl rematch against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, followed by a tough game against the Cowboys. We play the Atlanta Falcons and Jared Goff in Week 14, and Week 17 will be an NFC Championship game rematch against Arizona. It's going to be a really exciting year, and I can't wait to get the regular season underway. Our starting roster doesn't look all that different from last year, but I think our depth has taken a big step forward. Last season, we saw a lot of our rookies pressed into significant playing time, but this season we have the luxury of being intentional of when they get to play. This will allow us to put them in situations suited to their strengths at this point in their careers, rather than throwing them out on the field and just hoping for the best. Even George Towns probably won't play that often on passing downs to start his career. The exception to this is obviously Randall Barrow at right guard, but we do have a proven starter behind him in Halapulivati Vaitai if he starts to struggle. So the next video up will be Week 1 against the Kansas City Chiefs. Let me know who impressed you in the preseason and who you're excited to see over the course of the regular season. That's all for this episode. Thank you all so much for watching. Take care everybody, and like always, I'll catch you next time.